Right now, at this exact second, you feel like you are glitching. You are walking through your life, but the rendering feels off. The textures of your reality, your job, your relationships, your daily routine are failing to load. You feel a profound, heavy dissociation, like you are a stranger piloting a body that no longer belongs to you. You might be panicking. You might think you are having a mental breakdown, or that you are slipping into a depression. You are not. What you are experiencing is not a malfunction. It is a retrocausal overwrite. Your future self, the optimized, highest potential version of you existing in a non-linear time frame, has just initiated a forced update on your current reality. In computer science terms, you have hit the blue screen of death. But in the physics of consciousness, this is not the end. It is the reboot. You are not broken, you are buffering. We need to define the mechanics of this immediately, because the confusion you are feeling is a resource drain. In quantum physics, there is a phenomenon known as John Wheeler's delayed choice experiment. It proves something that shatters our linear understanding of time. The choice made by an observer in the present determines the path a particle took in the past. The destination creates the journey. The future determines history. Apply this to your life right now. You have been trying to build your future from the past brick by brick, linear step by linear step. That process has stopped. Why? Because the future self, the version of you that has already won, has looked back at you. That observation has locked onto your timeline. And because that future self is running on a completely different operating system than your current reality, it is overwriting your past and your present to ensure its own existence. The chaos you feel is not regression. It is data deletion. Your system is frantically uninstalling legacy software, old habits, old relationships, old thought patterns that are incompatible with the new version of you that is trying to download. You cannot run a quantum operating system on MS-DOS hardware. The crash you are living through is the necessary destruction of the old interface. Think about a massive software update on your phone. What happens? The screen goes black. The functions stop working. You can't make calls. You can't open apps. The device becomes a useless brick of glass and metal. If you didn't know an update was happening, you would think the phone was dead. You would try to mash the buttons. You would try to force it to work. That is what you are doing with your life right now. You are trying to force a system that is in the middle of a critical firmware rewrite to perform old tasks. And because it won't, you think you are failing. You are not failing. You are under construction. Let's look at the data. We need to validate the specific error codes you are seeing because they are distinct and they are universal to this specific frequency shift. You are tired. Deeply, unreasonably tired. You sleep for 8 hours, but you wake up feeling like you've been running simulations all night. You drink coffee, but the fog doesn't lift. This isn't physical exhaustion. This is RAM latency. Your biological computer is using 99% of its processing power to render a new timeline. You have no available bandwidth for the trivialities of the 3D world. Small tasks feel like climbing mountains because your energy is not here. It is being siphoned off to build the architecture of your future. You are experiencing identity collapse. You look in the mirror, and for a split second, you don't recognize the face looking back. It feels like a graphics render that hasn't finished loading. You look at your friends, people you have loved for years, and you feel nothing. Not anger, not animosity, just zero data. It's like clicking on a file folder and finding it empty. The emotional resonance is gone. You feel guilty about this. You think you are becoming cold. You aren't. You are just realizing that those relationships were scripted for the old version of you. That version has been archived. The new you has no code written for these interactions yet. You are walking into rooms and forgetting why you are there. This isn't early onset memory loss. This is a timeline glitch. Your consciousness is flickering between two stations, the dying signal of your past and the incoming signal of your future. When you forget why you walked into the kitchen, it's because for a microsecond, your consciousness was synced to a timeline where you were doing something else entirely. You are literally in two places at once, and your brain is struggling to integrate the data streams. There is a specific pressure, a physical sensation. Scan your body right now. You've likely felt it this week. A tightness behind the eyes, a ringing in the ears that isn't tinnitus. It's a high-pitched, steady frequency, a sudden heat in the spine. This is the hardware struggling to conduct a higher voltage than it was rated for. You are a 110-volt appliance suddenly plugged into a 220-volt socket. The heat is the resistance of your old cellular structure trying to accommodate the new light codes. You feel like you are screaming in a soundproof room. You try to explain this to people, your partner, your family, and they look at you with blank stares. They offer you linear solutions. They tell you to take a vacation. They tell you to see a therapist. They tell you to get organized. They don't understand that you cannot organize a house that is burning down. And this isolation is by design. You are being placed in a quarantine protocol. The system is isolating you to prevent cross-contamination. If you were surrounded by the noise of the collective right now, the download would fail. The silence is necessary for the installation. Your future self just triggered the frequency shift. The old code is being deleted. Everything changes. This is the diagnosis. You are in the void between two worlds. The old world, the one where you had to struggle, force, and manipulate reality to get what you wanted, is dead. It has been deleted. But the new world, the one where you are the architect, where reality bends to your command, hasn't fully rendered yet. You are standing in the static. The mistake you are making, the source of all your suffering right now, is that you are trying to fix the static. You are treating this transition like a problem to be solved. You are trying to use your old tools to repair the breakdown. You are trying to think your way out of it. You are trying to work your way out of it. Stop, you cannot fix a system that is designed to crash. Imagine you are a pilot. You have spent your whole life flying a propeller plane. You know every gauge, every lever. You know how it shakes when it hits turbulence. Suddenly, mid-flight, the propeller falls off. The wings dissolve. The cockpit vanishes. You are falling. You are panicking. You are reaching for levers that are no longer there. You are screaming that the plane is broken. But what you don't see, because you are too busy looking at the debris, is that a jet engine is forming around you. You are being upgraded from a biplane to a starship. But for the starship to form, the biplane must cease to exist. You cannot have both. You cannot keep the comfort of the propeller and gain the speed of the jet. The retrocausal overwrite is ruthless. It does not care about your comfort. It cares about your trajectory. It does not care if you like your current job. It cares if that job is compatible with your mission. If it's not, it will be removed. It does not care if you are attached to a specific relationship. If that person cannot hold the frequency of where you are going, they will be phased out. This feels cruel. It feels like loss. But it is actually efficiency. Your future self is an optimization algorithm. It looks at your life and asks one question. Does this file support the final render? If the answer is no, it initiates the delete command. You have been fighting this deletion. You have been grasping at the things falling away, trying to pull them back into your orbit. You are wasting energy trying to resurrect dead timelines. The fatigue you feel is the friction of your resistance. You are dragging a corpse and wondering why you can't run. If you have felt this system incompatibility this week, like you don't fit in your own skin, like the world has turned grey and pixelated around you, hit like on this video. Do it not for the algorithm, but as a digital signal to your own subconscious. By interacting, you are validating the glitch. You are telling your internal operating system, I see the update, I accept the bandwidth drain, I am ready for the overwrite. We are going to stop fighting the crash. We are going to stop trying to repair the old vehicle. Instead, we are going to learn how to facilitate the download. We are going to look at the mechanics of this retrocausal loop, not with fear, but with the cold clinical precision of an engineer. You are not a victim of this shift. You are the hardware it selected. You need to understand that this data wipe is the most significant indicator of success you have ever experienced. When a computer needs to install a massive new program, what is the first thing it does? It clears the cache, it frees up space, it stops running background applications. The emptiness you feel is not a void, it is capacity. You are being hollowed out so you can be filled with something else, something exponentially more powerful, something that requires terabytes of space that you simply didn't have yesterday. So, Let the old files corrupt. Let the old identity buffer and freeze. Let the screen go black. Do not touch the keyboard. Do not try to reboot manually. Let the system run its course. Because what comes online when the screen lights up again is not just a better version of you. It is a completely different species of creator. The update has started. Now let's look at the source code. We need to strip away the emotion for a moment and look at the mechanics. You are drowning in confusion because you are trying to solve a physics problem with psychology. You think you are broken. You think you are depressed. You are not. You are experiencing a temporal anomaly. To understand why your reality is dissolving, we have to look at the architecture of time itself. Specifically, we need to look at John Wheeler's delayed choice experiment. This is not philosophy. This is hard quantum physics. Here is the setup. A photon, a particle of light, travels through an interferometer. It has to make a choice. Does it behave like a wave, taking two paths at once? Or does it behave like a particle, taking one single defined path? Common sense tells us the photon decides how to travel at the moment it starts its journey. Cause leads to effect. Past leads to future. But Wheeler discovered something terrifying. The photon does not decide its path at the beginning. It decides its path at the end, depending on how it is measured. If the scientist chooses to measure it as a particle at the destination, the photon looks back in time and decides it traveled as a particle the entire journey. If the scientist measures it as a wave, the photon retroactively changes its history to have traveled as a wave. Read that again. The choice made in the present rewrites the history of the past. The destination determines the journey. This is retrocausality explained. And it is exactly what is happening to your nervous system right now. You are not the observer in this experiment. You are the photon. Your future self, the version of you that has already achieved the optimization, the wealth, the awakening, is the observer. That future self has finally locked onto a specific timeline. It has measured the outcome. Because the destination is now fixed in the future, the path leading up to it must change. But here is the glitch. The path you were on, the career you built, the relationships you tolerated, the routine you memorized, cannot lead to that new destination. It is mathematically impossible. The data doesn't link up. So, what does the universe do? It initiates a retrocausal overwrite. The future injects code into the present to ensure its own existence. This is not a gentle nudge. This is a hostile takeover of your current reality. To get you from where you were to where you are going, the system cannot just patch the old file. The architecture is too different. It has to format the drive. This explains the chaos, the sudden entropy, the reason why your life feels like a house of cards that someone just kicked over. You are not collapsing. You are being corrected. The breakdown you are fighting is the mechanism of your arrival. Let's define this phenomena. The retrocausal overwrite is a localized timeline edit. It has three specific signatures that I know you are feeling right now. First, it destroys stability. The comfort zone is simply a cached file of old behaviors. When the overwrite begins, stability is the first thing to be deleted. You lose the job. The landlord sells the house. The reliable contract falls through. This isn't bad luck. It is the system removing the variables that anchor you to the defunct timeline. Second, it creates amnesia. This is the one that scares you the most. You've been silently carrying this fear that you are losing your mind. You sit down to do work that used to light you up, and you feel nothing. Zero signal. You look at old friends and feel like you're watching strangers. You try to recall your passion, and it feels like trying to remember a dream from 10 years ago. This is not depression. This is cache clearing. The emotional resonance you had with your old life was stored in your RAM. The retrocausal overwrite has wiped that RAM to make space for the new instruction set. You don't care about those things anymore because the version of you that cared has been deleted. Third, it creates hyper-focus on the nonsensical. Suddenly, you are obsessed with a new topic, a new place, or a specific strange urge that makes no logical sense for your current career. You are an accountant who suddenly needs to understand soil regeneration. You are a nurse who suddenly needs to study graphic design. You fight this. You call it a distraction. It is not a distraction. It is the new script downloading. The future self is planting the assets you will need 3 years from now. But you are fighting the process. I watch you try to handle this, and I see 2 specific failure modes, 2 ways you are trying to fix the glitch that are actually making the crash worse. The first failure mode is psychological excavation. You are obsessed with finding the root cause in your past. You ask, why is my life falling apart? You go to therapy to dig up childhood trauma. You journal for hours about your blocks. Stop. You are analyzing corrupted data. You are trying to find the error in a file that is currently being overwritten. The past you are analyzing effectively no longer exists. It is being rewritten by the future observation. Digging into your past right now is like trying to recover a Word document while the computer is formatting the hard drive. It is a waste of processing power. The second failure mode is the force restart. This is where you try to push through the fatigue with willpower. You drink more coffee, you set more alarms, you try to force the old routine to work. I just need to grind harder. You cannot grind through this. You have no RAM available. Your system is utilizing 99% of its resources to render the new timeline. That deep, heavy exhaustion you feel? That bone-deep tiredness that sleep doesn't touch? That is render latency. Your energy is being diverted to build the bridge to the future. If you try to run high-intensity applications on top of that, you will crash the kernel, you will burn out. You need to understand the new paradigm. We have been taught that time is linear. We believe we are the bricklayers, placing one brick at a time, day by day, to build the house of the future. We think we are in control of the construction. That is the Newtonian model. It is outdated. The quantum model is a loop. You are not building the house is already built. The future you is standing in the doorway, activating a giant magnet. You are the iron filings being dragged backward through the dirt to stick to the magnet. The resistance you feel, the pain, the friction, the heat, is not because you are failing to build. It is because you are digging your heels in while you are being pulled. You are not the programmer writing the code. You are the hardware receiving the download. Shift your identity. Stop acting like the architect who has lost his blueprints. Start acting like the server that is receiving a massive update. When the server updates, it goes offline. It doesn't serve traffic. It doesn't run old apps. It sits in a dark, cool room and lets the new data overwrite the old zeros and ones. The glitch is the point. The chaos is the evidence. The fact that nothing makes sense anymore is the proof that the new logic is taking over. Stop trying to repair the version of you that is being uninstalled. Let it crash. The sooner it crashes, the sooner the new interface loads. This brings us to the architecture of the shift. You need to dismantle the way you perceive time right now. You are operating under a linear driver delusion. You believe you are at point A, pushing with all your might to get to point B. You think the sweat, the anxiety, and the planning are the fuel that creates the future. That is why you are exhausted. You are pushing against physics. The paradigm shift is this. The effect precedes the cause. In the quantum framework of your life, the result has already happened. The future you, the fully optimized, upgraded version, already exists. It is not a possibility. It is a compiled file. It is sitting on the server, waiting to be rendered. Stop thinking you are pushing a boulder up a hill. Start realizing you are being pulled by a giant magnet. The resistance you feel, that crushing weight in your chest, the confusion, the sudden stops, is not failure. It is karma drag. It is the friction caused by you trying to steer the ship when the autopilot has already locked onto the destination. The future self is dragging you backwards through time to meet it. This changes everything about how you operate. Consider your intuition. You've been told it's a gut feeling, a guess. That is incorrect. In a retro-causal system, intuition is not a prediction. Intuition is memory. It is a data packet sent from the future to the present. When you get that sudden, inexplicable urge to turn left, or to call that specific person, or to quit that secure job, you are not guessing. You are accessing a read-only file from the timeline where you already succeeded. Your future self is dropping breadcrumbs in the code. This explains the loss. You've been looking at your life falling apart and calling it a tragedy. You've been mourning the friends who stopped calling. You've been panicked about the career path that suddenly feels like chewing on dry cardboard. Flip the logic. If the future self is overwriting the system, everything that cannot support that new frequency must go. Those relationships, that job, that old routine, they are legacy software. You are trying to run a high-definition holographic operating system on a DOS processor. It cannot handle the throughput. The system isn't breaking, it is purging incompatible drivers. When a relationship turns cold overnight, do not try to fix it. That is like trying to jam a floppy disk into a USB port. It doesn't fit because the architecture has evolved. Let that sink in. The things you are clinging to are the very things blocking the download. This demands a total methodological shift. Your old operating system was built on predict and control. You analyze the past, project a future, and micromanage the steps. That is low bandwidth behavior. That is an analog signal in a digital world. Your new operating system is render and receive. You do not need to build the path. The path is already computed. Your only job is to clear the cache so the map can load. You need to move from high-anxiety striving to mechanical calm. Think of yourself not as the programmer, but as the receiver node. You are a high-bandwidth antenna. If the signal is fuzzy, you don't scream at the radio station. You tune the receiver. You stop the static. You align the dish. The anxiety you feel is simply signal noise. It's you trying